Welcome back to another Saxton podcast. Happy Thursday. On the heels of the 2016 Masters and a complete meltdown. You've had 4 days to think about it. Welcome in, Deuce. What are your thoughts from what we saw last weekend?
Yeah, all-time meltdown, I think. One for the books. As a fan and someone that's the Masters is my favorite event. I know we're usually together. We're kind of together this year on text. It was great for viewing. By hole 9, we thought it was over. Coach Johnny Miller must have called it 10 times saying it was over, and lo and behold, the golf gods gave us something special. Besides maybe Arnie's collapse in '66, I can't really think of a collapse like this by somebody that's going to go down as one of the best ever.
You think it's worse than Greg Norman's collapse?
Yeah, I'm trying. I think it's probably similar to that. Only now, Greg Norman, everyone in that era thought he was so special, but if you look at the records, Spieth's record is already almost eclipsed Norman's. So it might even be worse than that, especially since his is at least Norman started the whole day basically from T1, and Spieth didn't have it until the 12th tee, really. So I think it's worse.
I know it ultimately comes down to the player's decision. He's got to commit to the shot. But with the lead he had, how does the caddy let him hit a fade into number 12?
Yeah, like you said, it's the player's decision, but instead of the sawed-off fade in that situation where you're kind of leaking oil and the nerves are probably going, I'm not sure why you don't swing hard and take one less.
Especially the post-conference where he said the past couple weeks his miss has been that shot. With that in your head, there's no way I can let the player hit the shot if I'm the caddy.
Yeah, so one spot you can't miss.
Yep.
I would think if you hit a hard 9 and you draw it too much, you're in the back bunker. World-class short game, worst you make there is 4, right?
Yeah, I think that shot was just dumb mentally, but the shot that he hit in the water, the chip shot, I thought that was worse than anything.
Yeah, it looked like a 30 handicap.
Yeah, because he could have made 4 or 5 there and been in the tournament, still leading, really.
Yeah. I heard his decision to drop there was because they wanted a flat lie, which I get, but I've never been a fan of that kind of half swing feel shot. I think said he had like 68 yards or something. I'm not sure why you just don't drop it in the drop area, take your full shot, and get out of there with double at worst.
I thought the same thing. I heard him after the round say that they knew the exact yardage in the drop area, and the flat lie and the angle is why they went over there, and they weren't committed on the yardage.
I don't like that angle, to be honest. I think that brings everything into play. I don't know. It's a lot of bad decisions, and I can imagine his head was just spinning. But there's only so much blame you can put on the caddy.
Oh, I agree.
I know they're a team, whatever, but at that point, many consider you the best player in the world. You got to take a breath there and make a better decision. Now, if we want to get really technical, like you said, that miss has been happening for a while. I don't know if you saw any of the freeze frame replays, but he's got a serious bent left arm at impact, like chicken wing almost. And his grip looks a little weaker to me than it has since last year. So that's a recipe for either the quick hook or the big block. And
I think
looking back, I almost think that first round 66 was totally smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, I agree with the way he hit the ball Friday and Saturday. Even Sunday, he didn't really hit it that well. He got a 4-hole stretch where he got hot and made some putts, where he rattled off those 4 birdies in a row. But I did not think he hit the driver well at all weekend. And I also think if you go back, we're all going to talk about 12 for the rest of our lives. But 17 and 18 on Saturday is really where I think the collapse started.
18, yeah. I totally agree on 18 especially. The drive was just horrific. And then the putt, you expect him to make that, and he didn't. And that was kind of the first, wow, he brought 15 more guys
Yep.
into play with that one hole. If he makes par there, there's probably only 3 guys in it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think you're totally right. I think 18 the day before is really where it looked bad. But, he still had a big lead on 10T on Sunday, so it's tough for me to let him off the hook.
Oh, no, absolutely. And
it's shocking to me. The driver thing, though, is a good point because he did crack his gamer driver. And I, for one, have made fun of pros for years for their equipment. But listening to other guys talk, like Jerry Kelly said he tested almost 35 drivers last year when he made a switch. So I think there is something to be said for being uncomfortable with the new driver.
yeah, I think that's a good point. I think looking back on this, it's going to sting for him for a while. But the whirlwind tour that he was on, I know he complained he was tired, which we ripped him in the podcast for. But he was all over the world. I think this may be a good thing moving forward where now he could work on his game. Because as you said, you've studied the swing, and it certainly does not look like it did last year.
No, and I think it's a cumulative effect, right? You spend 4 months traveling the world, it's going to catch up to you eventually. I think this was his 3rd tournament in a row, so cumulatively, he looked tired to me. He looked whiny, he looked slow, he looked fidgety. I know he usually likes to talk to his caddy, but this week it seemed obscene. I think he was done. I think that was it. He just looked exhausted.
I thought the same thing.
I think this is a good thing for him long term, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought the same thing on Saturday. That where you just brought up the conversing with his caddy. They did not seem in sync, and he just didn't seem the Spieth of last year.
He wasn't committed to anything.
No.
Even just like a young guy like Bryson DeChambeau, pulled a club, took a number, and that's it. You can either make the swing or you're not. But Spieth he didn't look sure about anything except for putting. That's it.
We've spent exactly 8 minutes talking about Jordan Spieth. There was a guy who did come home with the green jacket, Danny Willett. Flash in the pan, or is he going to be a household name moving forward?
He'll be a household name. I know I saw a couple of comments on social media from some people we went to school with. Who is Danny Willett? He was 12th ranked player in the world coming into the week. So if you hadn't heard the name before, you clearly haven't followed golf very much the last couple of years. He's probably the best player. Even before this, I would have said he's probably the best prospect to come out of England since Justin Rose. He's a lock for the Ryder Cup team. I know we talked a little bit, it's probably a few months ago now, about the Ryder Cup a little bit on this podcast. And I mentioned his name as a lock for the team. He's going to be a really good Ryder Cup player. He's going to be a really good player around the world. I think he's built for success long term. He's a really good putter, and his swing is very solid. He has a go-to cut shot. He is, I think it's the last 60 years, he had the lowest number of birdies for a Masters winner the last 60 years. But he did not have a double bogey or worse. So he is built for consistency.
That stat about the double bogey is pretty impressive with the way the wind was whipping around those first 3 days.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it in our pre-Masters podcast. There's only been 3 winners. I think it says 2000 that have had a double bogey or worse on the week. So, pretty glaring stat that you have to avoid the big number to win around Augusta.
What was your biggest surprise as far as somebody playing well that you didn't expect?
That I didn't expect? I think Lee Westwood was a pretty big surprise. I know his track record around there is phenomenal, but he took a solid 6 months off and only recently came back. with as bad a short game as he has, and as big of a break as he took, I guess it really just shows that if you love the course and you know it, you can just come back and play it in your sleep, and that's what gives me hope about Tiger going forward in the future.
Great call on Westwood. How about
Right?
opposite end? Somebody surprising that didn't play very well that you expected to play well.
Adam Scott for
Yep.
me.
Yep.
Yeah, I know he made the cut, but he was never in it. Didn't make many birdies at all. I think he finished the week even par on the par fives, which is shocking considering he was number one on tour playing the par fives. He was number two on tour playing the par threes. Just very surprising he didn't get anything going all week. He didn't hit the ball well or putt very well at all.
Two guys that were thrown around nationally, Jason Day and Rory McIlroy. Your thoughts on their performances?
Both T10, so the numbers look okay, but, I was down on Day. I think he was in my hate list. Pre-Masters, with the win, he's a high ball hitter, didn't like it. He's a very boom or bust track record at Augusta. I don't know, something about him just doesn't click with me at Augusta. He likes to make the big number sometimes too. And that leads me into Rory, which he can't avoid the big number, it seems like, there. Randall Chambly made the comment that he's more sure that Rory will win a green jacket than he is in anything related to golf, which is pretty surprising to me, because the names that have not won the green jacket are pretty hefty. So I don't know if it's that short of a thing, to be honest.
As the years have gone on since his meltdown, when he hit a house that I didn't know existed at Augusta, I've become less sure that he will win one.
He keeps posting good finishes. I almost think he tries too hard there. I used to be sure of it too, but I think I'm turning towards your camp, where I think it's more 50-50 now than it used to be, especially with Spieth being a course specialist and all the other guys now. I don't know. I'm not as sure of it. I think if he doesn't win one in the next 3 or 4 years, then it becomes a problem, because then it's the one he can't win. Especially, like you said, with the scar tissue.
It seems to me that him and Dustin Johnson almost have to be paired in the 5th or 6th to last group and post a 65 and hope something happens.
Totally agree. Especially for Dustin Johnson. That putting, I'm not sure. I know his stats this year say otherwise, but I'm not sure he can win a major with what he's got going on.
You always think about the opportunities he's missed, but I cannot remember a big putt that he's ever made.
I can't either. Every time he wins, it seems like it's more just, he hits greens and makes birdies on par fives. I'm starting to doubt he's ever going to win a major, to be honest.
I still think that he should be able to overpower that course despite his poor putting.
Yeah, he did overpower the par fives, it seemed like, but the par fours, he's normally a very strong player on the par fours, but the problem is, even at Augusta with a wedge in your hands, you leave yourself 15 feet, it's got 4 feet of break on it. He's never going to make enough of those to win there, whereas Spieth makes those in his sleep. So I'm just not sure he's going to win at Augusta. I don't think he'll win at Augusta. Rory, I'm not sure about. If Dustin's going to win a major, it's going to be a really ratty, crappy weather Open Championship, or maybe a new school U.S. Open, like Aaron Hills next year. Something like that. He's not going to win on traditional layouts.
Do you think that if he would have won at Whistling Straits that year, or the U.S. Open at Pebble where he collapsed, his career would be different right now?
I think he'd have 4 or 5 majors. I think he would have won last year at Chambers Bay, and I think he would have probably won 2 others somewhere along the line. Totally
How
different career. I think we're talking about him as one of the best of this generation.
how surprised were you of Bubba Watson's performance?
I'm very surprised, and now that he's added another one of these kind of T55 finishes, to me, those 2 wins now look more like an aberration than not. He doesn't have a top 35 or 40 other than those 2 wins. So he's weird. I don't know if maybe it's the wind, but he's just very hard to predict, especially in the majors. His major championship record, besides those two green jackets, isn't very good.
Who's the favorite as we look forward to Oakmont, in your eyes?
I can't wait for Oakmont already. I'm assuming that the rough is going to be 5 inches long. I would assume, and the greens there are probably harder than Augusta, probably the hardest in the world. So I'm assuming either you got to favor, looking at the last time they played there, the either ultra accurate off the tee, Zach Johnson, David Toms, both were successful last time, or the power player, Cabrera, Tiger. I like Jason Day. I didn't like him in the Masters, but I think Oakmont suits his game. He's long enough, strong enough to get it out of the rough, and he's got a really good short game. So that's my early favorite there. I wouldn't be shocked to see Dustin Johnson sneak up a leaderboard just because of his power. But the course is so long, you either got to kill it off the tee or you got to be Jim Furyk, Zach Johnson type accurate, where you can kind of hit every fairway, hit a lot of greens, and hope to make a couple putts.
Anything else that you want to touch upon on the Masters?
Sad to see it go, but it was one for the ages.
Thoughts this week at Harbour Town?
Traditional spot for Harbour Town. It's a great golf course. Players love it. You've played it before. I think they would draw a much better field if it was in a different spot on the calendar, but they still get a decent one, especially with the RBC sponsorship. I took Cooch this week. Good track record there. Usually the same guys play well on the course. It's narrow, small greens. You got to be able to putt well. Luke Donald, Brant Snedeker, Graham McDowell, Charlie Hoffman, Kuchar, they all play well every year there. So I don't think you'll see any surprises this week.
What
the
are
weather forecast looks awful. Cool temperatures, rain every day, and very windy. So I would not be surprised to see a mutter, a rat, and some weather delays take place.
What are you expecting from Bryson DeChambeau this week in his professional debut?
He was awesome last week. He kind of slipped over the weekend, but when he was paired with Spieth the first couple of days, he hit the ball so much better than Spieth. It was insane. If he had any type of putter working, he would have probably had the lead outright after 36 holes, especially after that triple bogey on Friday on 18. But I think he might struggle a little bit this week with all the hoopla. I know he had a ton of commitments for sponsors that he signed with on Monday, Tuesday. And I'm not sure, but he signed with Cobra. I don't know if his contract makes him put the new clubs in the bag right away or if he gets some transition time or what. If he gets to play with his old clubs with Cobra head covers on them, then maybe he has some success this week. But if he's sticking new clubs in the bag right away, I'm not sure how well he's going to do.
Yeah, that is a good point to keep your eye on. Any other golf notes?
No, just working our way through a little lull here towards Oakmont, I think.
Well, let's switch gears to the NBA. Big night last night. Your thoughts on the two big events last night?
Yeah, great night for the association. I thought the bigger deal was the Warriors getting the
Agreed.
record. I didn't think that was ever going to be touched. I don't know about what your thoughts were, but I thought that record was safe for a while.
Absolutely agree.
Clearly not. Just shows you how good of a team they are. Coaching staff, the whole roster is solid. Kobe, obviously, I don't know where you put him in history, but he's probably a top 15 player of all time, top 10 maybe, depending on what kind of argument you want to have. Great way to go out, 60 points, 50 shots. I think that summarizes his career pretty well.
Yeah, I think you touched on it exactly the way I would have said it. As with any farewell season, I'm happy that it's over. I'm kind of sick of hearing about it. Unless you're a fan of the guy, as I was with Jeter's farewell, it's tough to hear about it every day. So I'm happy it's over. Your playoff thoughts. We can start in the East. Our Detroit basketball has a chance to shock the world. What kind of chances do you give them against Cleveland?
I think they can steal a couple games. I think they were 3-1 during the season.
You won one of those being last night. I don't think any of the Cleveland starters played.
No, okay, so 2-1 then.
Yes.
I like their fit against Cleveland's starters, especially. I think they got some matchup problems. I worry about the experience factor, but I think they can steal a game or two.
Yeah, if anything, I think this makes LeBron flip the switch quicker than he has in past playoffs in the first round. And I think it takes a toll as they move deeper into the playoffs.
He's played very well the last 2 weeks, LeBron, that is. I still don't buy into the Kyrie and Love thing. I just think they're kind of made-up superstars, but I agree with you. I think this gets LeBron's attention. And I think Tobias Harris can wear him down a little bit, especially on the offensive end. But I don't like their depth or their experience against Cleveland to win the series.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cleveland in 6. I do think they steal 2 games. And
I could buy that. Yeah, I like the 2 games.
How about the 2-7 matchup with Toronto and Indiana? Any issues for Toronto?
I think I think Indiana will get one at home, but no, I don't think this is. I think it's a good matchup for Toronto.
Same boat. I think it's 5-game series as well. Paul George will probably have one big game.
Right.
Excited to see Lowry in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, I think the guards are way too good for Indiana to handle.
Interesting 3-6 matchup with Miami and Charlotte. I know that we've both been high on Miami, then Bosch went down, and it's kind of been up in the air. But they've still continued to play well. And Charlotte's played well down the stretch.
Charlotte's a little bit scary, I think, if you're Miami.
Yeah, I think so as well. Kemba Walker had a really good year for them.
He's really good. He's underrated, never gets talked about.
Quietly, Jordan has done a nice job building a team there.
Shockingly. They're very balanced. They have a ton of guys that play. A ton of guys. I think they might have 10 guys that average over 15 minutes a game. Maybe more than 10. I can't remember. But all the way down to Spencer Hawes, P.J. Harrison, Frank the Tank. They just run guys at you. And like you said, Kemba's their go-to guy. I like that they have that go-to guy, especially against the Heat with that experience. I think Kemba is a big mismatch in this series.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he could really exploit Dragic.
I'm not sure they have it. I'm not sure they have enough to win the series, but I actually think this one goes the distance.
Who you taking?
I'll take the Heat, but I think it goes to 7.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If I was a betting man, though, and you could give me a nice, tasty money line for the Hornets winning the series, I probably would bite.
The only higher seed I have is in the next matchup, which is the 4-5. I like Boston over Atlanta.
totally agree. Love Boston. I like Boston to make a run this playoffs. Love this Boston team.
I think Boston. If I assume that I'm picking them to win this series, and I assume Cleveland's going to get by Detroit. I think on the heels of Detroit, this will be a tough series for Cleveland in round 2.
I don't think you can set up any worse for Cleveland. They got the number 1 seed, but I think these are the 2 teams that could give them the most trouble.
And then I think Miami's going to be spent after the Charlotte series, and I think Toronto will waltz through to the finals. And now you're going to face Toronto, who's just going to beat you up physically.
Yeah, we said it a few weeks ago. I think Cleveland's I think there's a sneaky scenario where they don't even make the finals, especially if LeBron's just not scoring 40 every night. If they have some things go the wrong way early, I think they could implode. I think Boston's a sneaky team to make it out of the East.
If Cleveland does get there this year, they certainly will have to earn it.
Yeah, right. I totally agree.
Over to the West. It looks like all chalk to me, but I'll get your thoughts. Golden State, Houston.
Well, I think James Harden's going to win a game. I don't think it goes past that. But Harden is on fire right now. He almost caught Steph for the scoring title. I think he leads the league in points since the All-Star break.
If Houston were to steal one of the first 2 games, would it become nervous time for Golden State?
Probably not. I just don't think Houston's deep enough to win more than a game. If they had, I don't know, Dwight Howard doesn't scare me. If they had another guy besides Harden, and they won game 2 or game 1 in Golden State, then maybe. But going forward, all you have to do is stop one guy, or just let him get his.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If they had 2 guys, it would worry me.
Do you think there's less pressure on Golden State now? Now that they've got the record?
Not really, no. I think there's more pressure. Because the record means nothing if they lose, right?
Yeah, they got to validate it now. You're right.
It's the Patriots'
18-0
season, basically.
Good point. Good comparison.
I think there's tons of pressure on them.
The 2-7 is San Antonio against Dallas.
Memphis.
Memphis lost last night. You're right.
Sweep City.
Yeah, I agree. 3-6 Oklahoma City, Dallas.
I think Dallas is sneaky. Dirk's still playing pretty well. I think Dallas will get a game. But Oklahoma City might be the deepest team in the league besides the Warriors. So I think this is a 5-game series.
I'm surprised Dallas was able to hang on. When you look at some of their injuries to Parsons and Darren Williams, it's really Dirk Nowitzki and a bunch of guys who nobody else wanted.
Yeah, it goes to show you how good Dirk still is, and the coach. I think the coach is one of the more underrated coaches in the league.
The 4-5 matchup may be interesting with Portland and the Clippers.
I think Portland has the guard play to maybe steal 2, especially in Portland. That place gets rowdy. The Clippers, though, down low are going to beat them up, I think. They'll slow the game down. They're just too big inside, I think, for Portland to really put a scare in them. Yeah,
the injury to Myers Leonard really hurts.
Totally agree. Changed this series in particular. There's just they're going to get out-rebounded by a ton. They'll get killed, points in the paint wise. The game they do win, or the 2 games, McCollum and Lillard are going to have to go bananas.
Yeah, completely agree. It seems like the West playoffs really won't start till round 2.
Yep.
MVP, is it even a question that it's Steph Curry?
No, it should be unanimous. But as with every voting system, Hall of Fame, MVP across sports, writers and sports heads are such pricks that there'll be 4 or 5 that don't vote for him.
We can get deeper into some of the matchups as we go into the playoffs, but typically the first round's chalk.
Yep. I think the East is far more intriguing than
Oh,
the West.
absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else you want to talk about? Oh, yeah, I do want to talk about something in the association. Randy Whitman not being brought back. Finally a win for Bullets fans everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't hate Whitman as much as some people. I think the team is poorly constructed now, obviously. It's not really his fault, but, going from where they were last year to where they are now, I think it was inevitable. I've already heard that Grunfeld is going to use some back channels and basically reach out to Durant's handlers and say, who the hell do you want to be a coach here?
Was just going to ask you that if Scott Brooks makes sense.
I think it's whoever the hell Kevin Durant wants. I think Scott Brooks does make some sense, yes.
And then lastly, for the association, for me, R.I.P. The Process and Sam Hinkie. It was a brutal 3 years, but he certainly has put Brian Colangelo in position to be a hero.
What are your deeper thoughts about this? I was going to bring it up
I read the 13-page manifesto, and he's certainly a very different, weird, intriguing, smart guy. A lot of the points and analytics and things he did, similar to how the Spurs run it, make a ton of sense. And I think it's tough to argue with what he did. There's certainly complaints that could be made about who he drafted, some of the second rounders or late round picks that haven't panned out, the lack of free agents being brought in. But I think he certainly accomplished what he set out to do. Some bad luck and probably some bad picks probably cost him the job.
I'm not a huge Brian Colangelo fan. I know he's won some awards, but he's made some pretty bad moves in the past. I think if you're already down this road, you're already in such a hole. You might as well stay the course. I don't really understand the move.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was more Adam Silver.
Like you've done many a times, if you go back the last 5 years and look at specific moves, there's probably one or two that you could really say, we should have done this, but I kind of think you are where you are no matter what.
Yeah, I still think it goes back to the premise that you can't be a 7 to 9 seed every year unless you hit like the Pacers did with Paul George. And that's one in, I don't know.
You could have probably built a better team with mid-level free agents. You keep Thad Young, etc., and you're a 7 seed? Who cares?
You're the Orlando Magic or somewhere between the Magic and the Pacers.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. So I think that's...
At the back end of the teams, and you get nobody.
Yeah, I've said it in this podcast before. I think the bigger issue is Silver has to find a way to get around those 6 to 8 to 6 to 10 seed to get better, to make the league better, to avoid this tanking.
I agree.
Anything else from you for the association?
Nope. Looking forward to the playoffs. I think it's underrated.
I absolutely agree. We will have the NFL draft preview Monday. Yes. We could get deeper into the trade that was just made with the Rams acquiring number 1. But ultimately, does that mean Carson Wentz?
I think it cements quarterback going 1 and 2.
Agree.
Not sure who's who. It's hard to decipher what's smokescreen, what's real information. Just judging by what people are saying, it looks like Wentz 1, Goff 2. But
agree.
Who knows? But I think we're planted in the quarterbacks going 1, 2.
I completely agree, and we'll get deep into it Monday. I know it's one of your favorite events, and you have as good a knowledge as anybody when it comes to the draft.
Love the draft. It's like the best fake event ever.
So we'll get deep into that Monday. We'll talk about the playoffs and recap Harbour Town.
Can't wait.
Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk soon.
You too.
Great job. See you, bud.
See ya.